I didn't plan on staying late that night. I never did. Being a single dad meant my evenings were scheduled down to the minute: pick up Noah from my neighbor's apartment, reheat whatever I'd cooked in bulk on Sunday, help with homework, read one chapter of the same dinosaur book he loved, then sleep. Order was survival. Chaos was a luxury I couldn't afford. But that night, the office lights were still blazing when I stepped out of the elevator. Most people had already left. The building felt hollow, like it was holding its breath. I was heading toward the parking garage when I heard laughter echo down the corridor, unsteady, too loud, followed by the sharp click of heels scraping against marble. Okay, I'm fine," a woman slurred. I said I'm fine. I stopped. Everyone in the company knew that voice. Claire Hawthorne. My boss. Not just my boss, she was the boss. CEO, youngest in the firm's history, famous for her razor-sharp meetings and impossible standards. She was also, very clearly, not fine. She stumbled into view, clutching her phone like it was a lifeline. Her hair, usually immaculate, had fallen loose around her shoulders. Her blazer hung open, one sleeve half off, and her eyes were glassy with alcohol and something heavier, exhaustion, maybe, or loneliness. Behind her, a man I didn't recognize hovered too close, his smile oily and his hand hovering near her back like he wasn't sure whether to grab or retreat. "I've got it from here," he said, his tone too eager. "I'll make sure she gets home safe." Claire waved him off weakly. "I don't need a babysitter." My instincts kicked in before my brain did. Maybe it was the way she swayed, or the way the man's eyes flicked to her purse. Maybe it was because I'd promised myself, after Noah's mother left, that I'd always step in when something felt wrong. I cleared my throat. "She doesn't look fine," I said. They both turned. Claire squinted at me, trying to focus. "Do I know you?" I nodded. "Ethan. Operations. Third floor." "Oh." She blinked. "Right. The spreadsheets guy." "Yeah," I said, forcing a small smile. The man straightened, clearly annoyed. "Everything's under control. I'm a friend." Claire shook her head. "He's not a friend," she murmured, suddenly quieter. "I don't even know his last name." That was enough. "I can take her home," I said, meeting the man's gaze. "She's my boss. It's my responsibility." The man scoffed. "You? She needs someone who—" "I'm calling security," I said calmly, pulling out my phone. He hesitated, cursed under his breath, then threw up his hands. "Whatever. Not my problem." He walked away, his footsteps echoing until they disappeared. Claire sagged against the wall as soon as he was gone. Up close, she looked younger, more fragile. "I hate that you saw me like this," she said. "Let's just get you home," I replied. Her car was still in the garage, but there was no way she was driving. She fumbled with her keys, dropping them twice before I gently took them from her hand. "Where do you live?" I asked. She recited the address with surprising clarity. "A high-rise downtown." Figures. The drive was quiet at first. The city lights streaked past, reflected in the windshield. Claire stared out the window, her forehead pressed lightly against the glass. "You didn't have to do this," she said eventually. "You could have just walked away." "I know," I said. "But I didn't." She laughed softly. "You sound like my father." I glanced at her. "Is that good or bad?" "Depends on the day." We stopped at a red light. She turned toward me, her eyes suddenly sharp despite the alcohol. "You have a kid, don't you?" I was startled. "How did you?" "You leave at exactly 5 every day," she said. "You never join after work drinks. And there's a crayon drawing taped inside your desk drawer. I notice things." I nodded. "Yeah. A son." "Noah. He's 7. Her expression softened. "Single dad." "Yeah. His mother?" she asked, then winced. "Sorry. None of my business." "It's okay," I said. "She left when he was 2. I'm sorry, she murmured. The light turned green. We drove on. At her building, the doorman recognized her immediately and rushed to help. I thanked him and guided Claire toward the elevator. She leaned heavily against me, her head resting briefly on my shoulder. I could smell her perfume, mixed with wine. She sighed. I don't like being alone, she said quietly. The words hit harder than I expected. In the elevator, she straightened, squaring her shoulders like she was about to walk into a board meeting instead of her apartment. The doors opened to a sleek, minimalist space, glass, steel, and silence. Do you need anything? I asked. Water? Food? She shook her head. Just stay until I sit down. I waited while she kicked off her heels and collapsed onto the couch. She looked up at me, her eyes suddenly clear, serious. You saved me from something tonight, she said. I don't even know what. But I know it wasn't good. I just did what anyone should, I replied. She studied me for a long moment, like she was memoizing my face. Most people don't. I helped her get a glass of water, made sure she took a couple of aspirin, and placed a blanket over her shoulders. When I finally turned to leave, she reached out and grabbed my wrist, not urgently, just enough to stop me. Thank you, Ethan, she said. For not pretending I was invisible. I nodded, gently freeing my hand. Get some rest, Claire. When I got home, Noah was already asleep on the couch, my neighbor quietly slipping out the door. I carried him to bed, brushed the hair from his forehead, and sat there for a moment, listening to his steady breathing. The night replayed in my mind, the fear in Claire's eyes, the weight of responsibility, the strange feeling of being truly seen by someone who usually looked through everyone. The next morning, I expected things to go back to normal. I expected Claire to avoid me, to pretend nothing had happened. That's what people like her did, right? They buried vulnerability under power suits and calendars packed with meetings. But when I walked into the office, her assistant stopped me before I reached my desk. She wants to see you. Now. My stomach dropped. I straightened my tie, took a deep breath, and headed toward the executive floor, wondering whether saving my drunk boss had just cost me my job, or changed it forever.